Hi folks, we hope you'll enjoy the upcoming answers to this hot question. What's the most high risk, low reward thing you've ever done? Snuck a girl over and had unprotected sex while my parents were home. Got syphilis at 17. Crap. Whilst building a house, the second floor had an I-beam that extended into nowhere that needed to be painted with rust protection paint. The floor had not been installed yet and the joists were still going in. To save time, I shimmied out to the end of the beam and started painting. Every breath of wind made the whole thing sway. Just my movements made it wiggle a fair bit. Nearly took a 6-meter swan dive to a concrete floor about 12 times. I could have painted it after the floor was in, but that would mean laying down drop sheets and lots of messing around. Should have waited. Was a totally stupid thing to do. I skipped class after a standardized test. Literally the afternoon teachers were showing movies and doing nothing, and I decided it was smart to get in school suspension to sit behind a warehouse and nap with my dumbass friend. My senior year, I figured out that I was legally an adult, so I could literally just leave whenever I wanted. I was an F&D student, but when I started cutting class early, my grades went to B's and C's because I had time to settle in at home, get an early start on my homework, and still had enough time and energy to play games with my friends on Xbox Live. Balanced on the top rung of a 6-meter ladder to change a light bulb at work. Yeesh, I've done that too. The downspout on my eave troughs came of. We were living in those skinny condos at the time, ground level garage, living room 2nd floor, bedrooms 3rd floor. So the eave troughs were probably 35 plus feet up. I borrowed my father-in-law's extension ladder, it was probably 10 feet short. I put it basically vertical against the house, instead of having the bottom further back, stood on the top rung on my tippy toes and just barely got the downspout back on. So dumb. Taking a year in a program I wasn't interested in to try and get a girl, who turned me down instantly. Dick decisions are always the worst. The human race almost ended because of dick decisions. Source, just started watching Battlestar Galactica. I once climbed an old truss bridge to get some neat pictures of myself. I climbed under it and sat on the beams beneath the bridge. I climbed to the very top. I hung off the edge of the bridge above several rocks. Once I got done and showed the pictures to my friends and they said they sucked. Should have worn a Spider-Man costume, would have made the whole ordeal look cooler. Come to think of it, even then most people would have described the pictures as crap or mega crap. Going way beyond the speed limit when I first started driving. When I think of the car stuff we tried when young, man, I shouldn't be alive. Mixing water with petrol to see if it works. I started smoking. Like, WTF is this stupid poop? It has literally no benefit, it just makes me uncomfortable when I don't do it and when I do it as well. Duck cigarettes. I have been smoking for 23 years. Got a cancer-negative CT. Haven't touched a cigarette in 2 months now. I stole every wheel off the chairs in my high school's computer lab as a joke during a 20-minute break. I still have one of them. Probably could have gotten expelled just for a slightly funny joke and a useless chair wheel. Well, I'm glad it didn't have a permanent bearing on your future. 8/10 pun. I once followed a young homeless man I just met because he wanted to show me where he was staying. It was nighttime and he invited me down into a dip in the trees. We walked through a dark section of forest, then he showed me some rocks and small caves with a couple beds set up. Then we left. I literally followed a stranger into the dark woods because, curiosity? Suicidality? I was in band in high school. I had a friend from middle school that was also involved in athletics at the time, and the two of us were outcasts among the greater band nerd population and often got talked down to, which even our instructor would join in on from time to time. At the time, flipping backpacks was popular, taking things out of the backpack, flipping the backpack inside out, returning the items to the bag and zipping the bag back up. One day when we had a substitute in and he had the class watch the typical BS Mozart movie from the 80s again. I found a mega bag of zip ties and convinced my buddy to help me flip every student's backpack, zip tie the bags closed, and then zip tie the bags into the instrument lockers while everyone watched the movie. If we got caught and reported, the instructor 100% would have suspended us, so we were on extra edge, and right as we were wrapping up, the substitute locked eyes with us from across the room and realized what was going on and decided to pretend nothing happened, and we completed the mission right on time. The class was very pissed as the lights flicked on and they saw what had unfolded. The substitute came back for a class later that year and talked to us, saying he had to actively try not to lose his crap when he saw what was going on. I freaking love you, Mr. Hudson. letting my mom count to 0. Once my mom started counting backwards from 5, and I started counting down from 3. She stared daggers at me and asked what I was counting to. I said that's how much time she has to stop pretending she was going to do poop when she got to 0. My spirit lives on to warn others of my misfortune. When I was about 7, there was some kind of meeting we had at school where the school counselor was asking a large group of us if there was anything we were sad or mad about. I think it was basically meant as an introduction to the concept of a counselor. I was sad that my great-grandmother had recently died, and I mentioned it. The counselor told me that it was okay to be sad, that there's a grieving process, etc. The regular advice for that sort of thing. But for some bizarre reason, what I told my mother later was completely different. To this day I cannot figure out why I did this. I don't remember disliking the counselor or anything like that. The only thing I can think of is that maybe I was doing one of those nonsensical what happens if I do this thing? Experiments that all kids do. I told my mom that the counselor had told me you need to just forget about it and move on with your life. I had no idea what can of worms I had just opened. My mom was livid. Over the course of the next few days, she called the school asking why the counselor would say something like that to me, and she discussed it with a few different people. They asked what the counselor's exact words were according to me, and my mom sat down and began to write a letter to make it into a formal complaint. She asked me what exactly the counselor said so that she could put it in this letter. At that point I knew this had gone way too far, and I was feeling bad over the fact that I was going to get this woman in trouble. So I finally admitted, quietly, she said, that it's okay to be sad. My mom, dad and grandmother were all very disappointed in me. My mom asked me why I would lie about something like that. I genuinely didn't have an answer for her, because I didn't know. When I said it, I had no idea it was going to go that far. I didn't know that my mom was going to go all the way to making a formal complaint about it. In the few days before she started writing the letter, I was hoping that she'd just sort of let the whole thing go, but she didn't, so I eventually had to fess up. I still feel bad about that to this day, because assuming the counselor was told about this, she had to be wondering why I was trying to get her in trouble. She was a nice lady and didn't do anything wrong. But for whatever reason, I clicked the wrong dialogue choice and quickly realized that I couldn't exactly reload from save. Masturbate using Vaporup. Thanks for the warning. I haven't done it, but I figured it was basically just spicy Vaseline. It is cocaine. Almost called 911, again. I got some cocaine with fentanyl in it about a year ago. Thankfully the guy I was with at the time knew CPR, got me breathing again, drove me to the ER and called my work saying that I wouldn't be there the next day for an obscure, non-drug related reason. Told my mom that my dad was working outside and not the truth of him tearing out a wall because he decided a sliding door would be pretty. He did not get it done before she got home. Pretty sure this is a Malcolm in the Middle episode. I once went on a heater at the Luxor in Vegas. When it was over I had turned $60 into $78K and change. I was drunk with excitement. It was 8 a.m. Saturday. On the way to the cage, shadowed by 3 floor guys, I spied an empty blackjack table. I walked over to it and asked one of the floor guys with me if I could bet it all in one hand. The table has a 5K limit, he pushing on a 17 and I avoided what would have been the most stupid, embarrassing thing I have ever done. So basically you were an idiot bailed out by fate. What would have been your answer or question? Leave it in the comments below. Slap that like and subscribe button for more, and check out the link in the video description for even more answers. Peace out, and catch you in the next video.